Down eighth in the fourth quarter, the Heat come back for a 95-94 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves thanks to a Nikola Jovic game-winning layup and foul. What a spectacular finish for Miami without Jimmy Butler in the lineup. I'll break down the winning play and what this win means on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Heat. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm your host, David Ramil, trying to fly solo this morning, recording after Miami's great win in Minnesota to help save the 6-game road trip, but also reminding you that your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter, one stop for the ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day off with all the new free Locked On Heat newsletter. Today's episode is also sponsored by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. So let's start off by setting the stage in the fourth quarter, because that's really what it boils down to. Miami had been playing well without Jimmy Butler in the lineup. Some changes to the starting lineup that I'll talk about a little bit later in the episode. Some changes to the rotation. Those were pretty interesting. We saw the rookie Kel'el Ware get a little bit more burn in this game against the Wolves. I'll get into his performance later on and what that means moving forward. But at the same time, the game was back and forth. Miami had, as you would imagine, a lead in the third quarter, because that's what they do. They just build a first half lead, and then they wind up squandering that, unfortunately, in the third quarter. Minnesota comes back. They're up 8 in the fourth. Looks like they're going to be able to put the game away. I had zero confidence that Miami was going to be able to find a way to turn it around, but they got some fortuitous baskets by Tyler Hero, who wound up leading the team with 26 total points. He had 11 of his 26 in the fourth quarter. They got some great free throws from Terry Rozier. Miami's free throw shooting had been pretty woeful down the stretch, but Rozier was able to get fouled on a three-point attempt, and he wound up collecting 3 of those. So he wound up helping Miami cut the lead a little bit. And then Miami, well, they were tied at 92 with just under a minute left to play when Jaden McDaniels winds up collecting a rebound off a Mike Conley three-pointer. And what happens then is that as he's putting the shot up, he gets pushed to the ground. So what do the refs do? They call a foul. Upon replay, however, it looks like his own teammate, Julius Randle, formerly of the New York Knicks, is the one who actually shoved Jaden McDaniels, while Haywood Highsmith had a hand placed gingerly on McDaniels' back. It looked like he had collected foul. Erik Spoelstra, to his credit, winds up challenging the play. Upon review, sure enough, Randle was the one who shoved his own teammate. No foul, no basket. Now they're only up 2, so it's a lot easier for Miami to find a way to tie this game up. And Erik Spoelstra designs what has been a brilliant play. I think they've used this in the past, although I can't recall an exact moment where they've used this specific play, but they have everybody lined up staggered there. Duncan Robinson inbounding the ball. I think he was being guarded by, you know what, I can't remember exactly who it was out there right now, but Duncan Robinson was being guarded on the inbound pass. And everybody thinks, well, quite clearly, that this shot is going to go down to Tyler Hero. He's a big shot maker. He's got the team high 26 points, game high 26 points, I should add. And everything looks like it's probably going to go to Hero. He's capable of making that shot. He's got range. He had 11 points in the fourth. Makes a lot of sense that you'd go to Tyler. What does he do? Terry Rozier comes up, sets a back screen on whoever was guarding. I think it was Jaden McDaniels who was guarding Nikola Jovic. And Jovic winds up cutting to the basket, has a wide open lane. Duncan Robinson finds him on the entry pass. Jovic lays it up, and he gets fouled by McDaniels, absorbs the contact, and one, lying on the ground, flexing, looking at his teammates. Big moment for Nico, who really needed the confidence boost after what's been mostly an inconsistent season. And then they wind up going up by 1, 95-94. Game not over yet. Obviously, Minnesota has an opportunity to tie the game up or take the lead. They don't. Miami plays some tough defense down the stretch, holds them. I believe Mike Conley wound up taking a three-pointer at the buzzer. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't fall. Miami holds on to win. Jovic surrounded by teammates. The power of friendship is back. Great moment for the Heat, who had gone 0-2 on the 6-game road trip that they've embarked with a tough loss in Phoenix, a tough gutsy loss in Denver where they lost Jimmy Butler. But that's not the news. The news is they got the win in Minnesota, a heck of a win, played great defense down the stretch, a lot to get into that. But that fourth quarter play was really what I think that's the takeaway. You look at that, you look at Nikola Jovic, he was taken out of the starting lineup, and I'll get into that right now because the changes to the starting lineup were that Erik Spoelstra took out Nico, started Kevin Love in his first action of the season. He gets a start against the Minnesota Timberwolves, theoretically to provide a little size and to space out Rudy Gobert, who's, of course, the Minnesota starting center. Julius Randle then would be picked up by Bam Adebayo. Gobert would have to kind of shade out a little bit, get out of the restricted area to cover Kevin Love, who's able to space the floor. That minimized a little bit of his impact at the rim, although not really. I don't think it necessarily worked. But it was an interesting change in the starting lineup. The second change in the starting lineup, Haywood Highsmith in place of Jimmy Butler there. So no Jaime Jaquez, who was also available after suffering gastroenteritis and whatever. He had the runs, basically. He was in Mexico. He had Montezuma's revenge, and it really tore him up. And he wound up missing the last few games after being able to play in Mexico City. He was back yesterday, looked a little gassed, didn't look quite into game shape, as you can imagine, after sitting on the porcelain throne for most of the last week or so. So it was probably a tough time for him, but he was back in action, wound up making some okay plays, wound up also not playing some great defense, but that's a whole other story. The changes is the starting lineup. Kevin Love out there. It was great to see him out there. Only played 13 minutes, though. So he's having a very short leash. I know that Spoelstra talked about it beforehand, that they were going to have him on a minutes restriction. That was pretty clear. I think his minutes were great. He had a couple minutes in the first quarter, obviously, the couple minutes in the third quarter, the Luke Babbitt rotation, as Wes would say. And I think they were impactful. Like, he was able to pull down some good rebounds. He had a 3-point shot, had one of his patented outlet passes to I believe it was Terry Rozier, although I might be mistaken about who wound up collecting that. But either way, it was a good outlet pass. He wound up having 6 total rebounds, 2 assists, 6 total points, 1 of 4 from 3-point range. You love to see it. Also had a free throw. So a great night of action for him, although in limited minutes. But I think overall an impactful one. And Miami, I think, was able to do a really good job defensively on Minnesota. That's really what stood out to me, aside from the fourth quarter comeback, is that they were able to hold Minnesota to just 39% shooting, 29% from 3-point range. And Anthony Edwards in particular was held to just 22 points. There's always a guy that can defend you, or that might have your number a little bit, might bust you a little bit, and when it comes to the league, and it might not necessarily be the guy that you expect. It's not like always a superstar. Haywood Highsmith did, I think, and watching the game, a really good job of making things difficult for Anthony Edwards. Edwards is going to get his 3-point shot off because he's one of the leading 3-point shooters in the NBA this season, but he wasn't able to have the same kind of impact that he normally would. And to go 8 of 24, just 33% on the night, I think Highsmith did an excellent job. Highsmith has certainly earned a lot more playing time. Started off with a great game in this road trip against Kevin Durant, wind up playing some minutes against Denver as well, had some big moments there. It's like we've all kind of collectively forgotten, and the coaching staff in particular had collectively forgotten what Haywood Highsmith was capable of, and I think he showed it last night against Anthony Edwards. So he gets a special shout out when we talk about the players of the game. So it was the defense that stood out. It was the last second shot, and also Kel'el Ware getting some additional playing time. Like I mentioned before, he wound up being Bam Adebayo's backup. Wind up playing, what does it say here? He winds up playing, not too many minutes, about 9 minutes in total. Wind up having 4 points. It looked like a corner 3, but it was actually a long 2-pointer. Had 3 blocks, however, so his impact in the middle defensively was certainly felt. Still looks a little lost, still a little foul prone, unfortunately. So I don't know if this is going to be the norm moving forward, but I will address that when we talk about some of the questions that you sent in yesterday using the hashtag LO Heat. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Tonight, Miami Dolphins are in action. Maybe you want to go and place a little action yourself over at FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, sometimes you're watching it. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play. You can do that and so much more over on the same page where you place your bets, but only if you visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win with your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back. Today's episode, again, brought to you by FanDuel. Just a reminder to join our exclusive community of subscribers to get the latest updates directly to your phone. Details are in our show notes wherever you get podcasts or via YouTube. It's a great feature, and I think most of you have really enjoyed it so far, and hopefully you'll continue to do so. Now it's time for, as what Wes would say, the tastiest segment in all of Heat history. Time to get in the kitchen and bake up some credit cookies, an opportunity we have not had often in the past. It's been a tough one with 3 straight losses, but Miami gets the much-needed dub against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'll start off by talking about the team's leading scorer, Tyler Hero, 26 points. Great game from him. I'm a little concerned, and I don't want to kind of squeeze this into my conversation about how impactful Tyler is, but he does tend to struggle a little bit in the third quarter. I think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that you're able to key on him a little bit. We saw that in recent losses where Miami just blows third quarter leads. I don't know what it's tied to specifically to Tyler. He seems to be putting out maximum effort out there. Like, you can see him quite clearly on plays in between after making like a tough shot or absorbing contact on his way to the rim, something he's been doing a lot more lately. He just seems, as you might imagine, a little tired, a little gassed. Not questioning his conditioning or anything like that, but he's carrying the brunt of the offensive load. And if there's any player in Miami's rotation that is moving as much as anybody, it's Tyler. He is definitely pushing the pace in terms of overall miles run on the court out there. It's just, there was a chart that was put out on social media yesterday. It shows just how much players are running out there in comparison to where they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, et cetera. The game has changed so much, constantly moving, coming off of screens, rescreens. It's just so much activity out there. Players are running basically a half marathon out there almost every game. That's inconceivable. Inconceivable to see all that activity out there, and no wonder that there is a wear and tear over the course of the regular season, but that's a whole conversation for another time. Tyler running out there, struggling in the third quarter, but guess what? It doesn't matter. He comes up big in the fourth quarter, hits a couple 3 throws, gets a couple 3-pointers, winds up putting Miami on his back and carrying them to help tie the game. They wound up doing a great job. He leads the game with 26 points. Great night for him. He wound up going, let's see, overall, he was 9 of 15, 4 of 8 from three-point range. Did a great job making plays for others. Phenomenal performance for him. So to me, I'm giving him a total of 4 credit cookies. I think he's on pace to not just be Miami's leading scorer, but something I've said before, I think he can flirt with all-star level play. I don't know that he'll be an all-star. So much of that depends on politicking and big naming and things of that sort. The Eastern Conference guard depth is such that I don't know that you're going to want to pick Tyler, even if he winds up putting up monster numbers. Right now, the numbers are good. I don't know that they're great enough to make him a shoo-in, but I think he's also making a strong case around the league. I think you have to respect the way he's performed this season. I think he's performed over expectations pretty clearly. At the same time, I don't know that, given the Boston Mafia there, the media mafia, excuse me, that you're not going to have Derek White going in there along with Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You have the whole starting lineup there. Kristaps Porzingis, who hasn't played a second, will probably get all-star consideration. So you're going to have a lot of different voters out there. They're going to give a lot of different people some shine, and I don't know that Tyler is necessarily going to be one of them, but he's making a strong case for himself. Other than that, Nikola Jovic, he gets credit cookies today. I'm giving him 3 on the night. For him to be benched, and we've talked about the volatility out there because there is an emotional aspect. Like, he's a gamer. I think he's certainly capable of handling a demotion. We know that he knows, more importantly, not just we know, but he knows that he has to earn those minutes, and he hasn't exactly done that. And that being the case, I was really impressed with how he responded. You could take a benching and it could just throw you all out of whack. Not only do you not know what your role is out there, you're playing with a different lineup, you're not sure exactly what to do. Nico had none of that. He was, if anything, it cemented him in a way that I don't think being in a starting lineup had. Like, he was aware, now I've got to go out there and make the most of my minutes. And he certainly did that. He was rebounding with enthusiasm and vigor and aggression. He was pulling the ball down, initiating the offense, going up court, shooting with confidence. He looked great, hit his first 2 3-pointers of the game, if I'm not mistaken. Just looked fantastic. And of course, the game-winning shot, he looked confident. That was exactly the version of Nikola Jovic that you'd like to see out there. Not the one who's been timid and kind of figuring it out in the starting lineup, how to play alongside Rozier and Hero, Jimmy Butler, etc. No. His shot was falling. He was aggressive. He looked like the guy who had dominated and been a dominant player, maybe not dominant, but a very, very good player internationally a couple of summers ago. So if he gets that verve back, and if it's just coming off the bench, well, so be it. I don't know that you can continue to go with Kevin Love as a starter, but I think Nico certainly did a great job of helping boost his case as a solid rotation player, because I think our concern was that if he's taken out of the starting lineup, hell, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, if Jimmy Butler had been available, there might be a possibility that Nico doesn't play, because you put Jaime Jaquez as your backup in there, and then you don't necessarily have to play Nico out there. So Kevin Love maybe not necessarily coming off the bench, or Haywood Highsmith not necessarily coming out as a starter. He would be playing those minutes over Jovic. So Erik Spoelstra has some tinkering to do. Nothing's finalized just yet, but 3 credit cookies for him. And now to Highsmith. Again, I pointed out what a great job he did. He had some timely buckets. Man, that floating push shot, I don't even know what you'd want to call it, is perhaps the ugly shot in the current level of the NBA. It might not be the ugliest shot in NBA history, but it is something to behold. He just goes up there, sprawled in midair, not quite sure what to do with his body or his hands or his arms or the ball, contorted. But hey, you know what? Sometimes the shot falls, and that's all that matters. He also hit a couple of 3-pointers. And again, the story of the game for me was his overall defense. He was 2 of 4 from the line. That's a story for another problem. Miami's free throw shooting woes were pretty evident, with the exception of Nico at the end and Terry Rozier that I mentioned. They wind up shooting just 73% from the free throw range, and that's not good enough. That's not going to cut it. You've got to be better. 2 of 4 for him. 3 of 6 overall from Bam Adebayo. He's just in his head. I don't know what's going on with him. And please, this is just an aside. I'm not going to talk about Bam all that much. I might bring it up in a question later on in the next segment, but let's not make the jokes about Asia Wilson. There's enough there to parse through in terms of what Bam's doing well and what he isn't, without having to kind of drag a woman's name into this and make her responsible. I know it's all jokes and it's all the internet, but we can do better than that out there. She didn't take anything from him. She didn't steal his game or anything like that. Those jokes are unnecessary. This, if anything, is why he wanted to keep that relationship as secretive as possible. I know it was a poorly kept secret, but it was a secret nonetheless, because he didn't want to hear that. He didn't want to have to hear the noise about, oh, your girlfriend's better than you, or your girlfriend stole your powers, or whatever. That's what makes celebrity so difficult. And I know you can always justify and say, well, he gets paid a lot of money. That, to me, isn't enough of a reason to allow yourself to be, well, quite possibly a jerk. So in any case, Haywood Highsmith getting a couple of cookies tonight. I think he did a fantastic job of guarding Anthony Edwards and hitting some key shots down the stretch. And then I want to give Kevin Love a cookie, because at age 30, 100, I don't know if you can go back and miss the whole season so far. And I know he's been slowly worked up to the conditioning, and he only wound up playing 13 minutes. But I think the minutes were, as I said before, impactful. You know, the outlet pass, the rebounding, the presence. There's something about having Kevin out there that restores some kind of comfort and balance to this group. I don't know if it's something you can necessarily point to. I don't know if the players could necessarily point to it and describe it in any way, but you can see that it's a positive impact. And that being the case, I did want to give him his credit as a cookie. But you know what? That was an experience there. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on your great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Listen, Game Time makes things so much easier. You're in town. Let's say you're traveling. Let's say you're go visiting a friend. And you know what? You've got a couple hours to kill. You're like, let's go catch a game. Let's go catch a concert. Let's go see a comedy show. You never know. Maybe you're in a place that you're not quite familiar with. Well, Game Time makes it easier. Sometimes you can get tickets. Oh, no, it's going to tip off at 7 o'clock. Or you know what? A show starts in 10 minutes. Well, guess what? The tickets might even be cheaper, especially if you wait a minute or two after the show starts itself. You might wind up getting the tickets so significantly cheaper after the show starts, so you never even have to worry about running late. You wind up saving money in the process. And I love their all-in pricing feature. Sometimes when you buy tickets, you get hit with this fee or that fee. Well, you don't have to worry about that. You know exactly what you're paying right up front. You get the seat views so that you know exactly where you're going to be sitting if it's a venue that you're not familiar with. And of course, they've got their lowest price guarantee. So make sure to take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On Heat for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. But again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONHEAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. We'll be right back. Today's episode, wrapping it up right now with some of the questions that you sent in via Twitter or by subscribing to our exclusive community of listeners via subtext. This question comes in via Twitter. What do you think of Kel'el's play tonight? He obviously needs more strength and energy. He makes Hassan Whiteside look like an energy bunny, but the rim presence on both ends was much needed. Certainly, if there's a strength to what he can provide right now, you can't teach height, right? That's the big thing. It's what he certainly provides. He was a shot blocking opportunist out there. He got a nice block shot on Gobert. I think one on Naz Reid as well. You can certainly see the impact that his size and length makes on the floor. But it's going to come in spurts. I just don't see him getting more consistent playing time. Like he'll get spot minutes as Erik Spoelstra continues to tinker with the rotation. Is he a better option than what Thomas Bryant can provide as a physical rebounder and theoretic floor spacer? I don't know. To me, it's kind of a wash. If I have to look at what Kel'el can do, clearly his strengths are size, shot blocking ability, and yes, he can space the floor as well. More active as a dunker, I'd say, than Bryant or Bam, or at this point, which is really surprising given what Bam is capable of. But I just think that there are moments where he's going to get pushed around and he's going to get bullied out there. Julius Randle put him in the spin cycle, just abused him out there. He got him back with a block later on in the game too. So I've got to say, I was impressed with his minutes overall, but I just don't know that it's going to translate into anything consistent. And that might be more reflective of Erik Spoelstra than anything else. He just doesn't tend to trust rookies in these moments. And I don't know that Kel'el has done anything to stand out necessarily. I think he has skills, he has talent, and he has potential. And I don't know that he's going to continue to showcase those at a high enough level. And that's really what it comes down to for me. And I think for this coaching staff is they want to win. They want to win a lot of games this regular season. They're not in the development phase. They're not in a rebuilding phase. And that's something we'll talk about in this next question, because I think a lot of people kind of view this team as, well, you're not good enough. What the hell are you doing wasting time out there? Well, that's just not how this front office views itself, how the coaching staff views itself. They believe that they're still, for better or for worse, they believe that they're capable of making noise in the playoffs. And I don't know if I necessarily believe it. I tend to think I had been optimistic based on what we saw in the preseason. I should know better. I've been covering the league long enough to know that the preseason is just a fool's gold. It's a mirage. But I wanted to buy in. I thought they were going to be able to tweak the offense. I thought Bam was going to be confident from long range. None of that has been the case. So I was proven wrong. I made a mistake, something I should not have done. But guess what? They're winning. They won a game 4-5. It's a start. It's something. Can they continue to build off of this? Will this be the beginning of something new? I don't know. But for Kel'el Ware, I don't think he's going to get the playing time. I don't think he's going to earn it. I don't think he's going to be strong enough or durable enough. Like there are just moments where he's just a long, lanky body out there, and he can't afford to be that at this stage of the season. And given what the stakes are for Miami, or at least how they view it, again, they want to see themselves winning a lot of games. And while he can make an impact, mostly positive, you look at the numbers yesterday. I mean, it was a minus 14 out there. That's not going to look good. And I know the plus minus is an imperfect stat. Almost every stat is, but it still kind of shows that when he's out there, his minutes kind of got yanked because you're not making the impact that you could. To me, again, Kevin Love had more impactful minutes. Bam, despite his offensive struggles, was certainly more impactful. He was able to impact the game in other ways, and his defense is still at such a high level. Look, this is also the question that comes in now. Look, should the Heat pivot to their young core and minimize the usage of over 30 players? No, they won't do it. Whether they should or not, if you're asking me, no, I don't think they should. I think there's benefit to the young players of playing for higher stakes, of playing alongside veterans, rather than just getting a lot of minutes. Like you see teams all the time, the young Orlando group. This is a different Orlando group. I think Orlando has a lot of talent, and they've been able to balance it in with some veteran players here and there. You look at rebuilding teams historically, Houston over the last few seasons. Again, they're good now. That wasn't always the case. They're good now with Fred VanVleet, with Dylan Brooks, etc. Like those players might not be perfect, but there's something to be said for having a clear identity, having a veteran presence, and not just throwing 5 20-year-olds out there and hoping for the best. That doesn't work. If that's what you want, that's never going to happen in Miami. They're just never going to lean into that sort of rebuilding phase. You've got if you're looking at over 30 players, Kevin Love, again, impactful. Alec Burks has been solid in his minutes. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler. He's not going anywhere. I don't think they're trading him. I don't think that this is a realistic scenario for this team to just say, we're not going to play these guys over 30. Who else does that leave? I can't even recall off the top of my head anybody else over 30. So you basically are looking at 3 players. Josh Richardson, I guess he's over 30 now. Like his minutes were terrible yesterday, and I hate saying that because we love Josh on this show. It was such a feel-good moment for him to be able to re-sign with his team after being away. I think he just does not know what to do out there as a point guard, and that's very dubious label there. He does some things well, but defensively, he was out of place. He gambles too much. He's not quick enough anymore to be able to take those gambles the way he did. And you don't have Hassan Whiteside cleaning up those mistakes when you go for steals on the perimeter, especially not with 3-point shooting being the way it is nowadays. Like he sags off the 3-point shooter as he tries to help somebody in the restricted painted area, or somebody drives in the lane. And what do? They kick it out to a wide open 3-pointer. We're like, at least, maybe I'm wrong here, I could have sworn there were at least 3 plays similar to that where it was just basically him sagging off, leaving a 3-point shooter open, and then being able to collect a shot and knock it down because he was playing so far off of them. That's just bad defense. That's bad defense. You've got to be able to recognize when to sag, when to help, and when to be able to, get that going again. So in any case, I think you're not going to be able to lean into the youth movement. You're not going to be able to just put your players out there. You do what you're doing now. You give them minutes when they can, give them playing time. Josh Christopher and Kashad Johnson, as much as you might like their level of play, are not better than Jimmy Butler and Alec Burks. They shouldn't get that playing time just because they're younger. They've got something to play for, but guess what? They've got to go and earn it. They've got to be part of some winning basketball. And again, that's the goal for this team. That's how they envision themselves. So I think that's better. I think that's the more likely option for this group. What are the Heat? Where are the Heat going to get some of that positive third quarter regression? Never. I think we've seen enough over the course of the last few years where they've struggled in the third quarter. I think that's going to continue to be the case. They're just never going to be able to figure it out for reasons that I can't understand, whether it's Tyler Hero, the rest of the group, fatigue, something going on there. I'm just not sure exactly what leads to those third quarter woes. Hopefully they'll have a good third quarter soon because they're going to need it, because I just don't know that this roster is good enough to allow those leads to slip and then find some kind of miracle at the fourth quarter. Like yesterday's comeback was very impressive, but a lot of that had to do with incredible defensive effort and Minnesota being way off even on their open looks. Credit to Miami's defense, but you also have to credit Minnesota just not playing particularly well too. So Minnesota lost a game almost as much as Miami was able to win it. But that'll do it for today's show. Make sure to help out the show by subscribing via YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, and be sure to check out our daily newsletter, delivering the latest news about your team and the rest of the NBA right to your inbox. Thanks for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.
You are Locked On Heat,